Here's a long one. Nothing but net. Oh, my goodness. Didn't see that coming. I'm diddly dee.
Yeah.
Welcome to another episode of All Nat, which is brought to you by On the Sidelines, my producer, OTS. And my name is Natalie. I am your host of All Nat, but most people do call me Nat. I am so delighted to welcome my two guests today. This is a ladies' first edition of All Nat. I have with me Maliika Walker and Jannelle Moore. And if you are NBA Twitter users, then you know both of these two ladies. If you don't, let me allow you to get acquainted with each of them. I'm going to start with Jannelle, just because I'm going in alphabetical order and no reason other than that. She is a fellow lady of Dub Nation. We are Dubs fans, Warriors fans. She is a scribe, and you can catch her writing on Basketball News. You can catch it on Complex Sports and many other places that Janelle is going to tell you about. Not only does she cover the NBA and the Golden State Warriors, but she also covers football and much more. So I think you'll enjoy Janelle's writing. I love her hustle. I think Janelle and I don't know if we joined Twitter around the same time, but we've kind of come up together, and I've watched her journey and her hustle to push her writing, and I'm so proud of her, and she's doing her thing. I love the work ethic, so I'm just so proud of where she's come and where she's going. She has her own podcast as well, Step Back Sisterhood. Check that out as well, promoting the ladies across different fan bases, discussing their teams. So definitely give Janelle that follow, and she'll let you know where you can find her and tell you a little bit more about herself. Janelle?
Yes, I've also had a feature on ESPN's Undefeated recently.
There you go.
You can catch me there. You can catch me at Carolina Blitz. You know, if you like football, if you're into that sort of thing. And basketball news, you know, just trying to put out this basketball content. I also recently had an interview with the San Jose Mercury.
Okay, and what was
for the
that
Warriors.
about?
It was for the Warriors beat, and the interview went well, but you know, that's all I got to say about that.
Okay. And where can they find you? Where can they follow you? On Twitter? We know where they can find your work. Where can they follow you?
They could follow me on Twitter at Janelle12, and you could follow me on Instagram at Writer Diva.
Okay. And I also, of course, want to introduce another writer and another woman's hustle who I admire, my girl, Maliika Walker. We're also so excited because we're about to go to the Nets Warriors game. I mean, Nets Warriors game tomorrow night in Brooklyn. And Malika is a Nets fan and Charlotte fan. So that's why she's the appropriate guest for today. But yeah, we're excited about that. I'm happy to have her on the show. Malika is part of a really dope series that's a part of the Hoop Spaces network on Twitter. If you're not familiar with Hoop Spaces, get familiar with it. It's bringing you great basketball content, and specifically Malika hosts the Rewind, and she does an awesome job with it. You get some great insight, and the focus is on basketball documentaries. It's a really just fascinating work and content that she focuses on and puts together, and it's definitely worth your time and attention to check out Malika. So I'm going to let her tell you where you can find her and find what she does, and check out both of these ladies. It'll be well worth it for you. Malika.
Thank you. Nice meeting you also, Janelle. And I'll definitely be paying, following your writing. And I love to follow women who are writing in sports space and give them support, no matter what team they're supporting. I am a Nets fan, born and bred in New Jersey. So I come from the New Jersey side for the Nets fan base. Ordered my City Edition jerseys already for Harden and Durant and the hoodie. So I'm on a budget now. And I host a Rewind, which is we do all sports documentaries,
Okay.
college, all sports. But I specialize in the basketball ones, but we are going to cover the gamut. And we basically review sports documentaries, and we're going to add sports books as well across the sports diaspora. And I'm excited about it. And yeah, and I also host the room Brooklyn's Finest, which is dedicated to the Nets. And coming soon, this is reggae music, because I write in the reggae space and interview artists in the reggae space. So we're going to be bringing that to the Hoop Spaces Network, talking with reggae artists, interviewing them, and I'll also restart my blog and start some content there. So excited to be here, and I'm looking forward to the conversations with you ladies.
Nice.
And
And
that
where
is
can
just
they check out
amazing.
the Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Where can they check out the Rewind? What day a week can they catch you doing that?
Well, the best way to catch the Rewind is to follow me on Twitter at Maliika Walker, and Maliika is how I spell my first name. Annoying. My mother wanted to be different. But you can catch me on Twitter. The Rewind, it moves around a little because it's football season. So, for right now, we're going to be between Tuesday and Wednesday. But if you follow me, you'll know the day. That's the best way to do it because I'll post it on my page. But mostly Tuesdays at 8. That's where you can pretty solidly find us for the most part, unless it's a special episode. Until football season is over, then we move to Mondays.
Okay, so hit that follow button, y'all, because you don't want to miss out. And not just because of the Rewind, but just because Malika is a great voice in sports and she's someone that you'll want to hear from. So today we're going to be talking about, we're just going to recap briefly the Warriors game last night. They did take their second L of the season to the Charlotte Hornets. It was an interesting game from my perspective. And I also wanted Janelle on for this episode because obviously she covers the squad, but also she is a North Carolina native and she has some insights just from being there with the Charlotte Hornets. So I thought these were two great guests to bring on today for this episode, and we're going to talk about it. So I have my thoughts on the show, but let me get you guys' perspective, not the show, the game last night, but let me get you guys' perspective on it. So Malika, I mean, the Charlotte Hornets are one of your teams. You root for them. So I'm sure you're happy for that W, especially in light of the last game, because we kind of blew the Hornets out and it maybe wasn't their best showing when they came to San Francisco. So how did you feel about last night's game?
Yeah, that's the thing with the Hornets. Like, if we don't get a good start, and yeah, Janelle, I'm not from Charlotte, but I'm a Jordan fan. And then I adopted the team back when they were the Bobcats. So
Okay.
that's how I became, in case you're wondering. But yeah, I follow the Hornets. And I feel like with the Hornets, if we don't get a good start, it's sometimes just depending on the team we're playing, that could be the end of the game already. And I feel like with the Hornets, they go on these spells where they can't score. And then all of a sudden, it's a 25-point lead. And, and the Hornets, even though it looks like we have a better offense this year, we don't have like this dominant like shooter like a Clay or somebody like a JJ Redick that just comes up and can shoot these threes. And it's really, the shooting has gotten better. Miles Bridges has gotten better as a shooter and as an all-around player. Terry Rozier is starting to shoot better. And sneakily, Gordon Hayward has these 20-point games, 18-point games where he's contributing, where people don't realize that he's actually had an impact on the game. That's what happened last year. And then when we didn't have him for that stretch, we suffered. He brings that presence and he moves the offense along. And then you have LaMelo, who's just, like, if he's not scoring, he's going to grab he's going to grab 15 rebounds, get those assists like he did the last game where he had 12 points, but he had 17 rebounds. He's the center. He's the point guard. He had more rebounds than anyone on the court. and he's the point guard. So LaMelo is going to find a way to make an impact. So I feel like with last night's game, we got, the team got lucky with a pop start by LaMelo with shooting the ball and shooting threes, and that kept us in the game. I felt like different players stepped up in different quarters. Like Terry Rozier was key for the second half because LaMelo didn't score anymore after the first half. And I didn't like that Borrego didn't get Gordon Hayward as involved in the second half. But hey, we were lucky that the Warriors shots weren't hitting, and because the game was sloppy on both sides to me. But hey,
Definitely.
Hornets came out with a W. We had multiple 20, double-digit scores, but like I said, the Hornets don't have that shooting specialist. So I'm always happy if we can come out with a win and and score some points. So that's how I see it. Our defense isn't all that great, but hopefully it'll get better as the season goes on. But I'm happy with the W because as the season goes on, let's face it, we're going to need as many W's as possible to even scratch the surface, make a play-in. We have a really torrential road series coming up in December. We need as many W's. We'll take them. So, hey.
And do you see the team ceiling as a play-in team or like a solidified one of the top 6 spots in the East?
I could see us getting a 6, but it really depends on how we do on the road. Like right now, LaMelo is a better player. He's a much better player at home than he is on the road consistently. They're a young team, so home. When you're a young team, especially, you're more comfortable playing at home. So it depends on how we do on the road. If we continue to not have like this road trip we just had, we were like 5-1. Like if we lost 5 and we won 1 game, right? If we continue down that road, then hey, we'll be happy with a play-in. But if we can figure out this road and at least break even, maybe we'll get a playoff. It depends on the East is torrential this year in terms of competition. So the reason why I said that is because everybody in the East, I feel, has gotten better, especially the top teams. I do believe Kyrie's eventually going to play with the Nets eventually. I don't know when, and I believe he's eventually going to play. Chicago's gotten better. Wizards has gotten better. So that's why I say play in at least. But I could see us getting the 6. But playing at least, I see that as a possibility.
And if the Nets and the Hornets meet up at some point in a potential playoff matchup, who you rooting
Nets
for?
all day.
Okay.
Yeah, Nets all day. That's not even a question. I've been a Nets fan since I used to go to the Nets games when I was younger when they were in Jersey. So I'm one of the Jersey Nets fans, and like within the Nets base, there's this Jersey contingent, and then there's the Brooklyn contingent that's like, well, we're Brooklyn, they just need to let that Jersey stuff go. So it's kind of like that drama within the Nets space, but I am a Nets fan from Jersey, and I wear it proudly.
Got you. So Janelle, what did you?
For my adopted team.
Your adopted team. I hear
They're
you. I
an
feel
adopted
you.
team.
Okay. Janelle, how did you feel about the game last night?
Well, I'm not really that upset about the loss, but as far as I'm concerned, I think that the loss was weird. The whole game was weird. The lineups and the rotations, for one thing, was weird. Kerr was trying to go with the defense, but defense wasn't the problem. The problem was we had an inability to make shots down the stretch. And it's hard to make those shots down the stretch when you have a lack of space. I believe the closing lineup had Andre and Draymond on the wings. Kevon Looney was in the dunker spot. And Wiggins had like 28 points last night, and he was good, but I don't think he was good enough to draw defenders away like Steph does. And just having that lack of space made it hard to, score down the stretch. And also, we jacked up at least like 39 threes. And this was against a Hornets team that has vulnerabilities at the 5. You know, there's no real rim protection. And
if you're not watching on video, Malika is here shaking her head like, yes, like they have vulnerabilities. And I think, Janelle, what you're pointing out, they didn't take advantage of those, right?
They didn't take advantage of those. And if I was Kerr, I would have spread out the floor and got to the rim and ratchet up the tempo. That the game was a slog, and it was sloppy on both sides. But if I was Kerr, that's what I should have done. That's what I would have done.
I feel you.
The common theme for the Warriors' 2 losses was the struggle in the half court sets, especially against, you know, a defense like a Memphis. And, you know, Charlotte was pretty good defensively down the stretch as well.
Yeah, it's interesting because we actually have one of the top half court offenses this year, right? The Warriors. So
right.
Sometimes shots don't fall, and correct me if I'm wrong, Malika, if you do or do know this, because I'm not sure, but I thought that Charlotte is one of the top teams in steals this year. Is that true, or am I making that up? Okay. You're shaking your head.
That's true because of LaMelo. Yeah, because sometimes he has 5 steals in a game.
Okay. And you guys are really good in transition as well, right? I think we're not hearing you. Okay.
Yeah, I was having problems with the unmute. Yes, that is correct. We definitely, yeah. Offensively, we're in the top in some of these categories. Defensively, it's a mess.
Right. So, I mean, you have a team, like Janelle pointed out, that there's mismatches, right, inside. And and they're really good team, you know, in terms of steals, right? So the Warriors turned the ball over a lot. We know that. I think they had around 15 last night. So they're probably going to hover around that for the year. We know that. But there are certain teams where having 15 turnovers is going to be more of a liability for you than others. And I think the Charlotte Hornets are one of those teams, right? Because they're going to capitalize on it. Not every team is good in transition when they get a steal. Not every team is going to turn your turnovers into points. So while I would like the turnovers to be, I think 15 is the max. I think they need to be 12 to 15. I'd like them closer to 12 on a nightly basis. And when Klay comes back, yeah, I mean, that was always the thing. They could overcompensate for their turnovers with their scoring punch and with their shooting. And generally speaking, they're able to do that because we have a deep bench this year. But on nights like last night, when the shots are not falling, right, then they turned into the Houston Rockets 2.0 from years ago. They just kept shooting threes. And not to mention, they weren't good shots, like not just because they were threes and they were missing, but a lot of the shot attempts were rushed. They weren't good looks. I mean, they just, you know, they were just settling. They just were not making smart decisions. They weren't playing a good game. So I always like to give credit, and I think Charlotte's a good team, and I certainly wasn't looking ahead of them. I heard that some people thought certain Warriors fans were. I certainly wasn't. I don't think Janelle was. I don't.
Oh, and also I would like to add, I hate to interrupt. Oh, my dogs are tripping.
That's okay.
Plus, I would also like to add, when it comes down to late game defenses, Kerr need to realize that he's not going to get those quality looks that he's used to in the early parts of the game, and eventually he would have to stop overpassing. You know what I mean?
Right.
And somebody have to take their man off the dribble, because you know, when it comes down to the late game defense, they're going to buckle down and try to lock in. So somebody have to create their own shots, and you're not going to get those backdoor cuts, especially against a good athletic and physical defense. And that's what Kerr has to realize. Or if he realizes, he need to act like it.
Yeah, I think the key thing that sorry, go ahead, man.
No, go ahead.
I think a key player we are missing. I think a key player we are missing right now is PJ Washington, because he helps us on the defensive end, and he's even though he's not 7 feet, he helps us with the backup center. He does a pretty decent job with that, and not having, even though he's not scoring a lot right now, but his playmaking he does at that backup five, some of the four, really helps us on the defensive end and some of the work he does. So that Otto Porter play, that's the last time he played, and we are missing him, and it, our rotation feels it. So I think right now, like last night was a night where we could have used him on the floor, but yeah, I just wanted to note that he's definitely missed, and I wish my coach would keep James McKnight and Kyle Jones in a G League if he's not going to use them. That's all. At least so they can get some rotation.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I don't really think there's much more to say about this game. I mean, I wasn't overly concerned by the loss. A loss has to happen. I'm actually, I there are people who didn't think our first loss was going to be so much later. I didn't know when the loss was coming. I knew there would be losses on the road trip, and teams have to lose. I expected it to be a team that we probably shouldn't lose to. And so again, I don't say that as a disrespect to the Charlotte Hornets. I say that as like, despite all the things the Warriors did, it was still a close game down at the end. And I don't think that the Charlotte Hornets were playing their best game either. You guys lost Kelly Oubre. He got kicked out, and he's been, while he made Michael Jordan go a little crazy the other night, he's been pretty good for you guys and impactful, right? And so I'm not trying to in any way, take a slight at all at the Charlotte Hornets, but the Warriors, they had a chance to win that game, and they didn't do what they needed to do. And so when you lose a game like that, especially if it's once in a while, right? Like if this was like a repeated pattern like last season, then you get frustrated. But they've been doing what they needed to. They stopped doing what they needed to last game, and they paid for it. And so you kind of always need that reminder during the season, and going into what is a big game. Everyone's going to say it's not a big game, but we all know it's a big game. They're going into Brooklyn tomorrow night. They're going to be playing the Nets. Kevin Durant used to be on the Warriors. Like, we used to have a thing with James Harden. This is going to be a big thing, a big game. I expect James Harden to come out playing his best. I know KD's going to come out wanting to like show up his old team. Steph and Dre are going to be like trying to show that they didn't need Kevin Durant to win. Like all these things no one is going to say, but all these underlying things will be happening, right? And so I'm glad that the loss came last night, so they'll be focused, because I hope that they want to be a team that is not losing two in a row and isn't having consecutive losses. And Steph usually tends to shoot lights out after a poor shooting night. So historically, that says these are all things that bode well for the Warriors. So I'm not that distraught at all over the loss, or having two losses on the season so far and still having the best record in the NBA. You're not going to get me that worked up right now about it. So that was kind of my takeaway. And agree with you though, Janelle, Kerr should not be having lineups where there's four non-shooters around Steph. Like, Andrew Wiggins is a scorer. He's not a shooter. So while he had a great game, like our closing lineups are always going small. It's our version of whatever the death lineup is. The death lineup is not a specific group of people. It's a certain lineup that we run. Clay isn't here, so Poole should have been out there probably. And even if people are saying Poole wasn't playing a good game, then you put Otto out there, or even Belly, right? But you don't put Kevon Looney out there. That just was nonsensical. And I mean, Kerr said he needed to see the lineup, but I think he's seen that lineup before. So I'm not sure what he was expecting it to do. Hopefully we don't see that experimentation again. So that's how I feel.
I think what he was expecting was, since the shots wouldn't fall, and he was trying to solidify and justify his reasoning with defense, but it ultimately it didn't work. Either way it goes, it didn't work at all.
Yeah, I know his rationale. It was like to have screen setting out there, to try to create some space, but you're not going to get that space when there's four non-shooters
Non-shooters
on the
out there.
floor because
Yeah.
they can always just run box and one or do something, right, to combat that. So it's you need to have another spacer out there. You need to have another shooter out there. So it was a very flawed logic. I didn't get it. And I know some people think like, who am I to question a coach? But we all know that I question Kerr all the time. So obviously a very good coach. We know that, but sometimes his lineups are a little questionable, just is what it is. Thankfully, it's not really costing them this season. So whatever, you live with it and you move on.
Right.
All right, ladies. So we ready to switch gears to tomorrow night? Because that's really that's really what we're here to talk about. Warriors versus the Brooklyn Nets. Tuesday, November 16th in Brooklyn at the Barclays Center. And Malika and me, let me get my grammar correctly. We will be in the building. I am so excited. I'm going to be repping Dub Nation hard. And I mean, I've been to Barclays mad times, but this is going to be special, hopefully. So I'm super excited. I hope it's an epic night. I really do. How are you feeling about it, Malika?
I'm very excited because I gotta admit this is my first time seeing Steph live, so I'm
I hope
really
he puts on a
excited
show
about
for you.
that. He's good as long as he's on the court. I'll be happy with it. You know what I mean? Like, but this would be my first time. He's one of my favorite players. I'm a Nets fan to the core. I mean, anytime you can see KD on the floor, I just consider it a blessing to let me get to see him play. I get to see him every night, every Nets game. I consider that a privilege. Harden, and a funny thing about Harden, yeah, we'll get to that later, but I am excited to be there. I can't wait to, be at the game with you. And it better be competitive so I'm sitting next to a Warriors fan and Steph is knocking down these shots and we're not stopping him because we have a pretty good defense this year. We're like ranked 6. But we'll see. I'm excited though. I can't wait.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to be surrounded though by other Nets fans. Have you gone to a Nets game yet since the pandemic?
No.
Okay. But you've been to games at Barclays before?
I've been to games at Barclays, but to be honest, the last thing that I've been to at Barclays is a Jay-Z concert.
Okay.
It's been a long time.
Okay. So yeah, I haven't been to the Barclays since the pandemic, but I have gone to the Barclays Center to watch games several times because I know they still consider it a season ticket holder. I've never been a full season ticket holder, but I've done like mini packages with the Nets before. So what I would do is I would pick teams that I wanted to see play when they came into Brooklyn. So of course the Warriors were always on that. The Celtics were always included because like you, that's kind of my second team. And then my two teams though are like in opposite coasts. And so
if Michael Jordan didn't own the Hornets, I would have got a West Coast team.
I hear you. So yeah, I've been there several times before. I haven't been there though since they've had a team this good, and so I'm interested to see what the vibe is going to be like because I also went to Nets games in New Jersey. My ex-boyfriend actually used to have season tickets. So we used to go when they were at what's that arena in Newark? You know what I'm talking about. But Prudential, yes. I used to go to the Prudential Center and it was like, the years that I went, because it wasn't like a great team. It wasn't like the good years.
It wasn't. Not the Prudential, but I used to be there as well. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I used to go to Nets games a lot, and I went to Nets games in Barclays a lot. The fans, the crowd has never been like overwhelming. It's nothing like the Knicks and
it's
being
nothing
in
like
Madison
the
Square Gardens.
Yeah, Madison Square Garden is a whole different experience.
And I actually prefer Barclays because as an arena, I just think it's a better entertainment experience, like in terms of the way that it's set up and like the food options, and it's really nice. So it has the potential really, but what it's lacking is the crowd, right? And I mean, some of their like during the game entertainment could also be a little bit better. So I'm just interested to see like how all of that has improved now being there with like such a great team. The Warriors come to town, you're always going to still have a lot of Warriors fans come into the building. So it'll be interesting to see just what that dynamic is going to be like. But you're going to be surrounded by other Warriors fans. Nets fans. I am going to be
Warriors fans to be there too.
They will. And I will be an obnoxious Warriors fan. So I want to give you a heads up. I am that person. I am obnoxious. I am going to be talking all kinds of shit, just like I do on Twitter, because that is me. So I just want to prepare you for what to expect being there with me.
Lord, don't embarrass me, please. Lord, I'm going to be right next to that influential. Nope. Y'all better do right by me.
Yeah, I'll be popping off. And there's a few people from NBA Twitter going to the game who are going to be there. So I hope to check in with them too. It should be a fun night. I don't know who's going to win that game. I want the Warriors to win. I don't know who's going to win because I think both teams are going to show up and bring it. Of course, I think the Warriors are the better team, so they should win, but that doesn't mean that they will. And I'm sure you think the Nets are the better team and should win. So, I mean,
I think the Warriors are the best team in the right now, but I think that we have tools and we'll get better as the season goes. But in terms of team wise, it'll definitely take a full team effort. But I think the Warriors are, just to clarify, I think the Warriors are the best team in the NBA right now. And I love the Nets, but right now they're clicking in a lot of areas. And we have work to do still. We're getting better every game, though. I see the development.
Thank you for your honesty. I mean, LaMarcus Aldridge seems to have been really great for you guys this season.
LaMarcus Aldridge that's one thing that made me nervous, is because you look at the age of some of our bench. And LaMarcus Aldridge, I was concerned, him coming back from, the health issue. I just didn't want to start off the season relying so much on him so early. I wanted to kind of build that up a little. And but he's been great and clutch for us. Anytime he scores 20 points, we've won the game at least. And he's really helping us. Also, what will help us better too is Patty Mills being consistent. But LaMarcus Aldridge has been awesome for us this year.
Yeah.
So far.
Okay.
I am nervous about his usage being so high this early.
Note to self, Janelle, we need to make sure we contain LaMarcus Aldridge under 20 points. I feel like that's like the Dre rule. Like if he gets to 8 points, the Dubs are usually winning. It's like there's certain players, there's kind of like, like when obviously it's never perfect science, but that's like their benchmark. And people kind of laugh when I say that about Dre because they're just like 8 points really. But the 8 points doesn't reflect.
No, Dre is more than yeah.
Right. It's about when he scores 8 points, that means he's being aggressive on the offense. And when he's doing that, that is a good thing for us. Right. And so that's really what it represents. And Patty Mills is great. I think that's honestly still an underrated pickup.
I'm sorry, I have to take this real quick. I'm sorry, this is emergency. I have to take this.
No problem.
Go ahead right ahead.
Yeah, I don't know what you think, Janelle. I thought that like Patty Mills was like a really underrated pickup for
I do too. I agree.
The Nets.
I agree.
I mean, he's streaky, but that's always been Patty Mills, right? So that's not a new thing. But like having him as your sixth man is a pretty good weapon to have.
I agree, especially since they lost Spencer Dinwiddie to Washington. You got to have that auxiliary score no matter where it comes from. And, Patty Mills being as streaky as he is, he has came up big in some of Brooklyn's wins. So, yeah, that was an underrated pickup.
Have you been able to watch the Nets this year at all, Janelle? Like, have you been watching them closely?
Only time I seen them was against Charlotte. The game that the Hornets actually won. That's about the only time I seen them.
And that was pretty early in the season,
Pretty
though,
early in the
right?
season, yeah.
So
I
what are
think
your
an interesting
expectations?
tidbit. No, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to
No,
cut you off.
no, 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 go ahead.
I think an interesting tidbit is the Hornets beat them the first game last year too.
Oh, really?
We beat the we use it's funny, we beat the Hornets the first time. We beat the Nets. The Hornets beat the Nets the first time we played them last year. And then this year the Nets, like beating the Nets in Brooklyn was interesting because I actually thought the Nets were supposed to, you have to win the games that you're kind of
You should
designated
win.
supposed to win. So
Yeah.
you should win. So yeah, go ahead though. Yeah.
So, I mean, we were talking about Patty Mills, and I was saying, like, I think that's an underrated pickup for you guys. And I understand that he's not always consistent, but I feel that's sort of been Patty Mills' career. So I don't know that that's surprising. You probably, especially with Kyrie being out, maybe need more than him than you would have initially bargained his role would be, but still a really, really, really great pickup for you guys. Great weapon to be having as he's your sixth man and coming off the bench, right? So yeah, I mean, look, you guys are still a lethal team still, and even without Kyrie. So and obviously, KD is there, right? And he's shooting out of his freaking mind right now, which makes I can't even say it makes no kind of sense because he's Kevin Durant, right? So, but he's just shooting out of his world, like out of his mind right now. So I wonder what do you think the Warriors should do, Malika? That's my question to you. And Janelle, what do you think, knowing the Warriors, Kurt is going to do going into tomorrow night to defend the Nets?
Did you want Janelle to go first or?
Sure, go ahead, Janelle.
I think Kerr would do or even should do is make KD work for shots. I mean, if obviously he's going to get his, and his mid range is just elite right now. His mid range is insane, but just having to make KD work for it some kind of way, be it a boxing one. I mean, that sounds crazy, but a guy at my church mentioned throwing a boxing one at KD since a conventional zone won't make matter. I mean, wouldn't help matters. But I'm curious to see what that would look like.
I don't think Kerr is going to do that. I mean, I think he's going to make him work. I agree. I don't think he's
work, but I don't think he's going to do a boxing one, and I don't even think that would matter.
He doesn't like to double players. Like Kerr definitely likes to play one-on-one. So, like even when like a player like Ant Edwards gets hot, like when we played the Wolves, it takes a really long time before Kerr will like be like, okay, maybe let's double him. Like it's not his thing. So I certainly don't see him throwing a box and one. Plus, I mean, Harden can make you pay for that, right? Yeah. Like you really only want to do that when there are no other offensive weapons on the court. So, but trying to force KD into isolation is probably a good strategy and one that has bode well in the past when teams play him. And obviously, like you said, he's going to get his, but basically taking others out of the game really is what you're trying to do. And, but see, that's what you have someone like Harden there for in theory to make sure that doesn't happen. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see.
Yes, I'm very interested in seeing that. I even post that question on Twitter, but I agree. You got to make KD work, and try to dare others to beat you. And those others could include Harden, but it's just going to be interesting to see how Kerr would adapt defensively.
Malika, what are you thinking?
I agree. I think Kerr should make, like the best you can do is to make him work. Just with KD's height and where he is with his game right now, the best you can do is make him work. But if he's going to hit the shot, he's going to hit the shot. I think that I'm concerned about Harris Joe Harris because he has an ankle injury.
Okay.
So us being without Joe Harris is an issue. I'm
Is he
waiting
out
to
for
see
tomorrow
what
night?
the I'm waiting to see, but it looked bad last night. It looked all
Mm,
like it looked bad. He went straight to the locker room, and so that's something I am concerned about because we do need Joe on the. I feel like we need Joe on the floor. Um, Harden, it's, like Harden is contributing and he's helping us win. He is figuring out on the offensive end, but he's getting, like the other night he had about 35. Um, he's getting to his spots. At least if he doesn't have a high point total, you could look at the assists and the rebounds. Like he's finding a way to help the team win, which I love. He's having to um, be that point guard. Like, and I think about other point guards and what they do if they're not scoring. He's doing those things. So I know he gets a lot of slander on. I see you, Nat, on Twitter,
because
but
I'm
he
coming.
is.
I'm coming to respond to you. But go ahead.
Yeah, like I know you ready. You sat back and everything, like 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 you ready. But we did record 4 losses. Of course, the Hornets, Bulls, Heat, and the Sixers. Um, but I Harden will. I just feel like tomorrow pressure will be on Harden, especially if if Joe Harris is on the floor. Patty Mills, will be. He has some good games already this season within Barclays. So, that bodes well for us too that we're playing at home. And our defense will need to be there. And hopefully not let, like I think one thing the Hornets have done is not let Steph Curry get too hot. It'll be good if they can impact Steph Curry's shooting in some way. Like you said, like last night he didn't have the greatest shooting night. So Tuesday, it usually leaves the game after he's on fire. So if there's a way we can hold him, a little bit, that can help the bottom line. But the Warriors do have a deep bench. But we have one thing we do have is some veteran players, and we can, if there's some way we can slow them down and impact their shot, that'd be good. But I think we really have to stick to our different defensive rotations. Let's do what we can to impact Steph. Where it's legal, and do what we can to impact Steph legally, and we have a shot. That's honestly how I feel about it.
So yeah, the thing about Steph is that I think obviously he does his most damage when he's like just a barrage of threes and you get a Curry flurry. But I mean, you have less of those than you used to because teams guard him differently now, right? Like so you have less of those. They still happen, but you have less of them. But a very underrated part of Steph's game is that he doesn't need to score all those threes to still really hurt you, right? And last night he was like scoring well at the rim and from two, right? But he settled a lot for threes, and I think he acknowledged that in his post game last night. He's just
Yeah.
like and he'll do that sometimes, right? I mean, all players will, so it's not unique to Steph, but it's just like, just hurt them at the rim stuff, right? Like, that's all you have to do. And the other times, obviously, he can use his gravity when shots are falling for the team, but they weren't, right? Outside of Andrew Wiggins. So then you kill him at the rim. And so, while I do think the Nets defense got better, I don't think it's enough to stop him, right, at the rim and what he can do in his wizardry. So, which is right up there with like Kyrie, right? And so I just I'm gonna be interested to see how the like what the Nets are gonna try to do, because I think in reality their game plan would probably be to just try to outscore the Warriors, right? I don't know defensively if I don't know. We'll have to see. Their defense is better, so I'm not gonna deny their defense.
They'll have some type of. They'll have to have some type of defensive scheme, but and I do think, yeah, team like Steph is lethal. It's like you have Steph, who is lethal on the floor offensively, and we have KD, who is lethal on the floor. They're totally different players, but offensively they could get their shot. So I feel like this game could boil down to how our other teams game plan the coaches have for the entire team outside of those key players. And we will see that on the floor. And I haven't heard the Harden slander yet, so I'm waiting for that to come because you sat back when I mentioned his name.
I did, but you said an interesting point about Steph. So that's why I didn't go there. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'm just saying, I think that, like I said, I think the game plan and not watching, and also, you have some young players on both sides, not just watching the star player, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
And being involved. So I do like some of the pieces you guys have, and I like some of the pieces we have, and I'm curious to see what they look like on the floor. Like, I really love what you guys have with Jordan Poole. I love what you guys have actually with Gary Payton Jr. I think he has a bright future. And I love that, I don't know what's going on with Nick Claxton, but hopefully he can actually help with the rotation coming up. And hopefully he can play tomorrow with the rotation. I love Patty Mills. I mean, he's awesome.
Who do you think the Nets are going to put on? Who do you think the Nets are going to put on Steph? Are they going to is there going to be a primary defender, or are they going to like switch between different guys?
I think they may switch between different guys. I could see them putting Patty on him. I could see them putting Devon Carter on him. But we'll see. I mean, I think, because he's Steph, he's going to see different defenders to mix them up a little bit, or try to. But I think it'll be, Devon, Patty, maybe even some Harden to switch on him. But we'll see.
So these are a couple of my thoughts about tomorrow, right? Like, if it turns into a game of Steph versus KD, which I would love, just to see them both going at each other. I don't think that's smart for either team, but I think a difference in, this is my opinion, and others may not agree with it. I think the difference in trying to take Steph out of the game, where people have tried to do that, is that even if you try to take Steph out the game shooting, like I said, his gravity alone is he's going to end up creating so much opportunities though for others on the court, because if he's drawing 2-3 defenders, then someone else is going to be open. And the Warriors, unlike last year, have the players this year to make them pay for doing that. And when Clay comes back, it'll be even worse, right? And so when I said the whole thing about like him being lethal, it wasn't that KD isn't lethal. It's that KD can get very sucked into isolation play and then take his teammates out of the game. And I know that because that's what happened with the Warriors. But I don't think that's an issue for Brooklyn because Harden is there. And so even if that were happening, you have Harden. I also don't think, though, and this is something I've expressed to you, Malika. So to be clear, so people know, I'm not just like a hater on great talent. I don't like James Harden, but that's because the Warriors, they were our rivals.
The Warriors don't like,
Yeah, we have background with James Harden. So people should realize that if they don't, I'm a Warriors fan, and we played the Rockets, and we had I can't even really call it a rivalry. A rivalry would indicate that you win something, and they didn't beat us ever. So, calling it a rivalry is probably complimenting the Rockets and James Harden a little too much, but I'm not a fan of him. and I'm not a fan of his play style. And it doesn't mean that I don't think James Harden is a great player, but I think he's a player who is reliant on free throws. I don't think he has to be. I just think that that's the way his game has developed. I don't think he's as efficient without free throws, but lots of players aren't as efficient, like not everyone is going to be KD or Steph. So that's okay. But I think all the games where he's had 30 plus this year, he also shot a lot of free throws, right? And so I don't think without Kyrie that the Nets can win it all if you're not getting close to 30 points from Harden plus all the playmaking he does, right? Like similar to what he used to be. And I guess I'm just trying to understand, is he going to be able to get you guys 28, 27, over 25 without having all the free throws? Because I haven't seen it yet. Right. And I don't know what kind of game tomorrow night's going to be, but that's kind of more like a overarching kind of look at the Nets, like not just focused on tomorrow night, but in general about James Harden. So that's really all I have to say about him. I'm not here to like slander him for purposes of tomorrow night, but I know that he certainly can't have one of these nights where he doesn't have impact on the game. Like he's had a couple of games because then it'll just be a fun night on Twitter. But outside of that, I don't really have any reason to slander him. He's been playing better, but I think he has to give you guys more. And like you said, if Joe Harris is going to be out tomorrow, right? And if you're not getting one of those nights from LaMarcus, but you probably will, and you don't know what kind of night Patty Mills is going to have, right? Like they're going to need it from somewhere. So I'm just curious what you think about that. Both of you, Janelle and Malika.
What's that?
Janelle, would you like to go? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just like with Harden and like, there's been a lot of talk this year with the rule changes that he's one of the players it's impacting, right? So he's been getting, I don't know if he's been getting triple doubles. It's looked like it or like close to it. He's had like some high assist totals, high rebound totals, and he'll have like some 20-point games. But I know like Malika referenced earlier, like he had like 35 points the other night. That was versus the Pelicans. And he shot like 15 free throws or something like that. And I think the other game where he got over 30, he shot a lot of free throws as well. I don't think we've seen yet a 30-point night from Harden where he hasn't shot a lot of free throws yet this year.
I haven't seen it this year. And, the shame about Harden is he has let, the free throws, dominate his game kind of. I mean, if that makes sense. And he don't really need to be reliant on it, but as the years gone on, he's become more reliant on it. And
he has more made free throws than field goals. Like that's not typical for a scorer, right?
Yes,
it's just
yes. I wouldn't have a problem with him if it would just play through the contact instead of playing for the foul. That's been my issue. And that's been my issue with other players, even the Treys, the Lukas. I mean, they all have that kind of tendency.
And notably, they're all struggling a little bit this year.
And they're all struggling. Oh, and let's not forget about Dame too.
Yeah, another one.
Well, I will say with Harden, he's adapting to the new rules. I mean, he's still, like I said, he's still found a way to be productive. And the Nets are, I believe, we're 10-4. So it's not like, I mean, yes, there's some games in there that I wish we would have won, but I think Harden is contributing. He's getting better. I think that even though it was against the Pelicans, because hey, Pelicans, they're a pro team too, and they're hungry and fighting for a win. They ended up getting a win recently, but Harden was our dominant player that game, and he did go 39 and I believe 12, if I'm not mistaken. He is. I think it's going to be key for him to score more for us, especially. I don't know what we're still waiting on. Where I just checked my phone to see if there's anything with Joe Harris. There's nothing been released yet by the Nets. We're going to need that punch. I believe Patty Mills can deliver that punch. He's had like his last game was a good game. LaMarcus has been like our steady. LaMarcus has been our steady mid-range specialist. Bruce Brown, I think he can, like get consistent. I believe that we'll get that punch from somewhere. With the Nets now, like KD is going to do his thing, but with the rest of the team, we got the blue collar, we got the blue collar workers that are willing to do those things that is necessary to win. And I believe that we'll figure it out. It depends on what game plan Steve Nash has tomorrow night versus the Warriors, and we'll see. But I think it could come from Patty Mills. I think LaMarcus, Bruce Brown. But it's going to come from. I'm sure it's going to come from somewhere. I would love to say Joe Harris too, but part of me feels like he may not be there.
Right.
So it means Patty Mills needs to step up. LaMarcus needs to step up. Harden needs to be, and Harden knows what he needs to do, and we'll see tomorrow night in the Barclays what we got.
So the Warriors have the top defense in the league. So they're not a defense like the Pelicans. Like he's not going to get 15 free throws on the Warriors. Like if he does, I'd be surprised. So when I bring up the Pelicans, it's not to like knock the Pelicans. Like every team is an NBA basketball team. My point is that it's notable that that's the team he got it on because they're not a great defense. And so my point is only that he still seems to, while he's adjusting and not trying to foul bait as much because he's not getting the calls, he hasn't found a way to still get his point totals. So the rebounds in there, the assists are there, and obviously he's impacting the game, but he hasn't found a way to get his scoring back to the same level without that. That's the point that I'm pointing out. And I think it has to happen for them to go all the way without Kyrie. That's the point that I'm making.
Well, let me just note real quick that, Harden was rehabbing from an injury this summer. So he didn't get the opportunity to really do the things that players, get those runs in like this summer and do those type of things and get his, and do anything other than rehabbing. So what we're seeing from Harden, which I know we all know on this call, is not only is he adjusting to the new rules, but he's also working on his condition. He's working on everything right now. And for him to be doing that and still positively impacting the team and getting us some key wins, I think it's to be commended. And I'm loving seeing the progression so far from Harden. Yes, sometimes I watch the game and it looks, like you see like some things from him, but you see that sometimes from other players. Like all players have that. But he's coming into his own. I'm excited to see what he does tomorrow night and how he helps the team win tomorrow night. I'm excited to see what Steve Nash's game plan is going to be versus the Warriors. And I think it's going to be a good game. And I'm excited because KD is going to KD. Steph is Steph. LaMarcus will hit that mid-range. The Warriors will be coming. And I'm curious to see what Steve Nash is going to pull together to have us be competitive. Because it's definitely going to have to be a game plan with. We have to see with Joe Harris because if he's not, if he is playing, he's going to be on a minutes restriction. So we're going to need to see what game plan they have for tomorrow night. That's a big question mark.
This is probably the part where the Harden slander comes in. Yeah, I'm not moved by anything he's doing, because because he said, no, not only that, because he told us it was going to be scary hours. So if you knew that your conditioning wasn't ready, right? And I think everyone would understand that, right? But if you knew your conditioning wasn't ready, what the hell are we supposed to be scared about? Like, get yourself together. Don't set up everybody to be like, yeah, it's going to be like, what are we doing here? I'm sorry. I don't give him a pass for that. Yeah, but then tell me it's going to be scary hours once you're ready to really be scary. The other thing is just historically, when you remove Harden's free throws, this is what he's shown to be in terms of as a scorer. He's never demonstrated the ability to be a 30-point scorer or close to that without it, Steph is a player who's had the most 40-point games and only shot one free throw. So we know that Steph has the ability to do that. We know that Paul George is showing right now he has the ability to do that. There's a whole thing going about will Paul George get a free throw tonight, right? Kevin Durant, we know, has the ability to do that. And so it doesn't mean that he's not a great player, but he hasn't demonstrated that in the past. So I guess I'm just wondering if it's realistic to expect him to become that this season. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. And so
I mean, I think we will see as the season progresses. I mean, as the season progresses, we will see the progression of James Harden. And we're going to see that. He is working on it. He, like I said, yeah, of course he's contributing to the game, but there's been some spots where he scored, where he's able to get those point totals for us. But, well, I believe in Harden. Like he's on our team. I mean, he's there,
right,
but I
course.
believe Harden and the guys will figure it out. I feel like we're blessed to have him on our team, especially with Kyrie being out for with the New York vaccination mandates, and Kyrie is missed. But we have to work with who's on the court, and I think it's a blessing we have Harden, and we'll figure it, and it'll be figured out. Like I will say that I would like refs to, one thing they have to be consistent with is call the fouls if there are fouls. Like if they're not fouls and they're not the locking arms, and yeah, I know I've seen that too. And the fouls they're not supposed to be calling, of course, don't call them. But if it's a foul, even if it's James Harden, because he's not getting the calls. So even if it's a real foul. So I would like the refs to figure out, for themselves, like what fouls they should be calling. But other than that, we'll see what happens. Like
yeah, I think
night,
it's consistent
really
in that no one's getting the calls though, right? Like I do. So I think there's an overcorrection. So I agree with you. And I know you and Nat from like Celtics Twitter were having this conversation. And I like jumped into
the other
it.
Nat.
So
yeah,
the other Nat. If you guys don't know her, check her out. I don't know her exact handle, but she's Nat. She's a Celtics fan. She's Celtics Twitter, and she's dope.
Celtics full court. Yep.
Celtics full court. There you go. I think it's consistent in that no one's getting the calls right now, right? Like it's all the stars.
I will agree with that. I just feel like Harden even more so. They don't call nothing for Harden. He could be getting knocked out. They do not call fouls. But we don't need to turn this into a foul conversation, because I also don't agree that he should be relying on fouls. I believe he's going to figure it. He's a great player. He's going to figure out what he needs to do to help Nets get these wins. And he's been doing what he needs to do. So he's been doing his best so far. So, and that will continue to progress, and he'll continue to do his thing. And tomorrow night, we'll have a game plan. We'll see where we are, whether we have Joe Harris or not. I know the Warriors will be ready after last night's loss, and we will see that on the floor. And since I'm sitting next to you, I really hope that it's.
Don't worry, I won't be yelling anything crazy. I won't be yelling anything crazy.
It's a competitive game. They'll have a game plan regardless if Joe Harris is there or not. I just think he's a key part of the starting lineup and that rotation. That I'm just curious of the game plan Nash is going to have to cover his points.
How have you felt about Nash's coaching job?
I think he's gotten better. I think he's definitely made, he does make some adjustments. He has sometimes I'm like, what is he doing? But I have to say, all in all, he made some decent to good calls. I'm not one of those Mets fans that's calling for Steve Nash's whatever, but I like Steve Nash. I'm patient and willing to see and because sometimes I'm one of those fans that did like, okay, sometimes I'm wondering what he's doing with some of his rotations, but I have to say he's been pretty decent so far this year. I don't really have complaints about Nash.
So wait, are Nets fans calling for Nash's termination? Is this a thing that I'm unaware of?
No, I think last year people were thinking that D'Antoni was making most of the decisions last year. This year, you have Nash, and I think there's a spotlight on everything he's doing. because he doesn't have D'Antoni there, and you can't shift that blame there. But no, I think everyone's watching him. I think that's, which is natural. Everyone's watching every decision, and it's like you go in some of these rooms for the Nets, and it's like, or you read some of the articles. It's definitely, some of the things are definitely pointing out, okay, what has Nash done, and just looking at Nash. So I think that that's natural that everyone's looking at him. With him, not being the head coach of the Nets, but with the change in the assistant coaches since last year.
Gotcha.
He also lost the Celtics coach, and so it's really looking at what he's doing. So
right. Okay, I want to give Janelle the last word because I feel like we haven't heard from her in a minute. But these are my only final 2 points. The way that I feel about the fouls is I think that with any new rule, there's an overcorrection, right? So I think as the season goes on, it'll balance out and it will get a little better. But I also think that what you're seeing now is going to be close to what the playoffs are going to look like. And because the refs just hold their whistle during the playoffs. And so that's the reason why I had mentioned the other day, I think it's a good thing because it more closely simulates the postseason than it does the regular season. And we've seen players who have not been there before struggle in the postseason because they are not used to that. And so I think it's probably a better thing for everyone to get used to the way the game is being called. And the other thing about the Nets is like, there's nothing to worry about because you've only lost 4 games and you're still one of the best teams in the league. I think for me, if I was a Nets fan, the only thing would be concerning to me would be how some of the wins are coming, like against certain teams, where I feel they should be better than, or maybe, the game shouldn't be so hard to win. And like you said, they're still figuring it out. So they probably will, but that would probably be the only thing that concerns me. Like when I can look to a game like the Warriors, like when we lost to Memphis, and I know it's like a Twitter joke, like, oh, Ja owns Steph, but like if we're really being serious, if you have 22 turnovers, you're likely not going to win a game, right? And the Warriors at one point were like leading, like I'm not worried about that. Like that's a game that they beat themselves, right? And so I know that. But if they were constantly struggling to like the Lakers, who are like struggling to beat OKC and struggling to beat teams that like, LeBron James might be gone, but you should still be able to beat these teams. That's when I think you kind of have to maybe be a little concerned about your team. I don't think that the Nets are to the degree of the Lakers, but that's just my observation as an outsider.
The turnovers is one of those areas that I've been watching, especially also with Harden. With the turnovers, that is concerning, but I don't think it's enough to raise alarms yet. Like if we were in the middle of the season and this was still continuing, where we had high turnovers and like Harden has his triple doubles, but the point totals aren't there yet. Then it's like, okay, but we're not there yet. So I think that I think we're fine and we're getting there.
You keep your eye on it, but you don't like. Right. Agreed.
But we see it. We see the things that, like everyone else sees. But But Janelle, I don't want to keep talking. Sorry.
Janelle. Yeah. So what do you think is going to happen tomorrow night? I mean, we can't predict, and I don't like to force people into predictions, but what are you expecting to see tomorrow night?
What I expect and what I hope is that it will be a competitive game. I would like to see a back and forth. Just a really highly competitive game, up tempo, and just seeing the best go at it. That's what I'm really expecting to see. And as far as the Warriors go, the key for them is not to be totally reckless with the ball. I know they're going to make a lot of passes and all of that, and they have this arbitrary number to get 30 assists and 15 turnovers or less, but be a little bit conservative with the ball. That's all I ask. And
I think if they're not overpassing, I think the 30 assists just happens naturally. It's when And so I don't know if they're really trying to get to 30 assists. If they are, that seems silly to me. But I think when they're just playing their game, the 30 assists come naturally, right? Like it just comes within the flow of the offense.
Right. I expect them to be a little bit conservative with the ball and don't get into the notion of overpassing it. That's what I mean. And if their threes aren't falling, stop trying to force the issue. If there is an opening, especially like in the middle, wherever, go get a bucket. Don't settle for threes. And I hope for Steph, I hope that he will come out firing and but making better decisions. That's what I hope for.
Something I'd actually like to see is Gary Payton on KD. I know people are going to be like, Natalie, what are you talking about? But hear me out. I don't think that. Who did I just say? Jordan Poole? Is that what I said? I said Gary Payton. Okay, good. Because I thought I said sometimes my mind is ahead of like what I'm trying to say. I did mean Gary Payton. Because Gary Payton is not as strong as like a PJ Tucker. But if you look at KD historically, shorter defenders can be like a little bit of a nuisance on him. Pat Beverly, people like that, because he's so tall and because he can dribble kind of high, they can like sometimes get the ball away from him. No one is stopping KD, no one. But what I'm saying is they can get under his skin and be like kind of little
down and irritate him a bit to try to force him into bad shots, try to force him into bad decisions.
And not even that, just turn the ball over because they can get it from him. He has a high dribble, they can snatch it, and you can get something. So I would like to see some moments where Gary Payton is on him just to see if he can frustrate him like the way we've seen Pat Bev and people like PJ Tucker do. Like PJ Tucker more gets into him because he's like a big guy, but Pat Beverly is more just like they're all different kinds of defenders, but like Gary Payton's actually a really, really good defender. He's just smaller. So I would like to see some minutes on KD just to see if he can like be a pest to him and get a couple steals off him. I don't know if Kerr will try it, but just, it's something that I've seen in the past and I think it would be interesting to see. So I'd like to see that. I think we need a Jordan Poole game where his decision making is going to be good. Not like last night versus the Hornets where it was really, really bad decision maker. I think this might be a game where you see some Kuminga minutes. He's been good in the last 2 games. Nice, strong, big body out there, athletic. Brooklyn does have some length. So I would like to, Blake is out there. So I would like to see a Kuminga in this game. I think this is a good matchup to feature him in. So yeah, I mean, we have some stuff to work with, but at the end of the day, I agree with both of you. I think it's gonna be a good game. I actually would not like it to be like one of those nail biters because honestly, my heart can't handle the stress. But I think it's gonna be a good game, and I actually expect to see Harden, KD, and Steph. I expect to see the 3 superstars play really well, and I expect to see Dre do his thing as the defensive player that he is, and
Blake Griffin has been really good for us in key moments as well. So I'm really interested to see how he fits into what we're doing tomorrow as well. Like defensively, he tends to get some key blocks and stuff like that. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing, as well as Blake Griffin. I'm looking forward to seeing our bench and seeing, them step up and be there for the guy, because we're going to need a collective effort.
The whole team is going to turn up. I expect Brooklyn to play excellent tomorrow because that's what I expect. Yeah. Janelle, are you planning to cover or write about this game? And if not, like, what do you have coming up that the people should know that's forthcoming?
Well, I don't have anything specific coming up. I take that back. I do, but I gotta see what's going on with basketball news and where my ideas will fit into that. I do have Warriors content coming up. It won't be specifically on that game, but just about their season as a whole. Some of the storylines that I've been noticing about the season as a whole.
Okay, cool. I look forward to that. I always enjoy reading your work. All right, guys, thank you for tuning in today for another episode of All Nat. I'm sure you love the ladies as much as I do. Love to see Black women doing their thing in sports. It is
Yeah.
just a beautiful sight to see. And Janelle and Malika are two of the best out there doing it. So you should definitely give them a follow and check out their work and support them. I think you'll find their content enjoyable. Please follow the All Nat podcast on your favorite streaming platforms. Subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Do it on both. Download the episodes. Even if you don't have time to listen every week, it helps and supports me just by downloading and subscribing and following. So please do those things if you want to support me but can't listen every week, or if you don't love basketball. But all of those things, do that. It's helpful. And tune in next week, another episode. You're always getting 1 to 2 each week as we follow the season and who the Warriors are playing, and we bring on dope guests like I did today to speak about those matchups, so you guys are in tune what's going on with the rest of the league. Appreciate you. Until the next episode, take care, everyone.
Nat, before you close out, do you want to stand a little bit so we can see what your hoodie is? I just see stuff peeking out at the top.
It's just it's a 30 hoodie. And
okay, cool.
Yeah. I don't always wear Warriors gear on here. Sometimes I'm just like basic, but I feel like this moment warrants it because
and I don't have one of the Nets gear, so y'all put me to shame. But
no, but
Nets
that's
world
okay.
Nets world all day. Nets world all day.
No, I don't wear it all the time, so it is definitely it's all good. Definitely all good.
And I got the Warriors hoodie too.
No doubt. Hold it up. Yes, Warriors.
Nets world all day. Tomorrow.
No, we're like poor Malika here. She's being surrounded by all these Warriors fans.
Yeah, my stuff is buried, and I just ordered the City Edition. So if we were doing this in a few weeks, I would have been in the new City Edition gear.
You're good, girl. Nets all day for you. We know that. It's all good. All right, ladies. Take care. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Of course.
Thank you for having me. This was fun. Thank you
so much.
Bye.
Love you guys.